Hi there, my name is Catherine, and I want to tell you how my life has changed dramatically overnight. Until that moment, I could not have even imagined how much reality differs from everything that happened to me. I have always been a happy person. I had a strong and close family, a loving boyfriend, Dave, a cool dog, Toby, and many friends. I also had excellent grades in school and a talent for drawing. 2 months ago, I had my well-ordered and wonderful life full of fun, love, and other good moments. Dave used to take me to school in his old pickup truck. My mother had always prepared lunch for me, consisting of a couple of sandwiches and some sweets. My father helped me with my drawings regularly. In short, I was happy. Mom, Lily invited me to a sleepover. Can I go? I once asked Mom. Of course, Mom said. Kathy smiled. She said that she called me in the morning so that I know everything is okay. That day, for the first time, I felt something strange. I blinked. It seemed to me that just a second ago, my mom was wearing a green jacket. But then it turned blue. Mom immediately noticed a change in my face. Is something wrong, darling? She asked. Your face changed so dramatically. Were you wearing a blue jacket? It seemed to me that it was green, I said. My question surprised Mom, and she replied that the jacket was blue from the very beginning. I blamed it on the light change because the sun showed up suddenly from behind the clouds, illuminating the room. Probably when it was darker, the color just seemed different to me. I'll call you, Mom. I just thought it was green because of the light. After these words, I kissed my mother on the cheek, took my bag, and left the house. Nothing strange happened that day, but the next day, I experienced something similar to visual hallucinations again. This time, it was a squirrel jumping on a tree. Pointing at it with my hand, I saw the surprise on the faces of my friends. Kathy, there's nothing there, Sandra said. After these events, I decided to take some rest. I did not use the phone on the weekend because maybe the hallucinations were from looking at the bright screen the whole time. On Monday, I didn't notice anything strange, but I heard something strange instead. No matter where I was, I heard the same sound in my ear all the time, a strange squeak. It was like a charge bomb that I had seen in movies many times. Just in case, I even searched my bag to make sure that there were no explosives in it. Of course, there was nothing there. Saturday's date with Dave was the last in my happy and well-ordered life. He gave me a bouquet of daisies and invited me to a cafe to eat strawberry ice cream. I could still hear that strange sound, but I tried not to pay attention to it, attributing it to fatigue from school. Dave took my hand and squeezed it encouragingly. I smiled at him and nodded. Uncertainty, I tried to remain calm, but those sounds frightened me. I had never experienced anything like that before. We finished our ice cream and he gave me a ride home. I hugged him goodbye, walked to the house, and went to the bed almost immediately. Falling asleep, I thought of only one thing. I hoped that the squeak would disappear from my head in the morning. This was the last night of my former life. In a dream, I realized that the squeak became even louder. I opened my eyes and didn't understand where I was. I knew exactly there was no such bright lamps on my ceiling. My gaze met the white ceiling. The next second, I wanted to sit down, but realized that I couldn't do it. It seemed that my body refused to obey. I still heard the same squeak, but this time it was not in my head. It was somehow very close in this room. Somehow I managed to turn my head and see a strange apparatus with numbers. I realized that I was in the hospital. Maybe I had gotten sick that night and my parents had called an ambulance. The nurse entered the room. She gasped and ran to me immediately, then pressed the red button located above the bed. I didn't understand why she was examining me so anxiously, and it would be better if I never knew the truth that befell on me that day. A doctor entered the room. He looked at me in surprise. He came up and felt my pulse. The doctor nodded with satisfaction, and some other made an entry on the chart. Catherine, you've been in a coma for a very long time. Don't worry that your body may not obey you. It'll pass after rehabilitation. I think you will be able to move and walk easily. But for this, you will have to try very hard. The doctor's words made me gasp. Did he mean it? Was I really in a coma? How long have I been in a coma? I asked. This question, which interested me most at that moment, I couldn't believe that something this serious had happened to me. 5 years ago, Catherine, your mom had already lost her faith and thought you would not wake up, but I was sure that you were a strong girl and would be able to overcome the disease. Congratulations. This day can be considered your second birthday. I'm going to call your mom. She will come to you as soon as possible." After that, he told the name of the medicine to the nurse and left. The nurse put me on an IV and also left the room, leaving me shocked. I was in a coma for 5 whole years. What happened during this time? I lay in bed and tried to get rid of the confusion of thoughts in my head. What happened to me? Why did I slip into a coma? Why did the doctor mention only my mother? Where's my father? How is Dave doing? The flow of thoughts was stopped by my mother, who entered the room. She covered her mouth with her hands and a few tears rolled down her face. Mom came to my bed and took my hand. "Catherine, dear, I thought I lost you. I didn't believe the doctor when he told me that you were awake." My mother squeezed my hand and smiled, brushing tears from her face with her free hand. I asked immediately what had happened and how I slipped into a coma. "Oh, baby, it happened 5 years ago. Your father, you and I went to the water park to celebrate your birthday. It was a very hot day. The sun was shining in my eyes. There were many accidents on the road. I asked your dad to drive more carefully, but he said that everything would be fine. But after half an hour, he lost control due to the bright sun. Our car fell off the bridge. I woke up in the hospital and was paralyzed for the next 6 months, and you lapsed in a coma. Kathy, since that day, I have never spoken to you because you simply could not answer me." "What about Dad?" I asked quietly, being afraid to hear the answer. Mom started crying again and covered her face with her hands, but after a couple of seconds, she pulled herself together and wiped her tears away. I already knew that I would not like her answer. "Unfortunately, he did not survive. 5 years have passed. I have already accepted this fact of my life. Every day I thought that I only have you. For the last year, I could no longer hope that you would come back to me." My mother leaned over to me and hugged me gently. "Dave, did he ask about me?" I said. It was clear that Dave probably already had another girlfriend. Already because many years had passed. But my mother's answer shocked me. Dave didn't exist. She didn't know who he was. The next day, the doctor told me that most likely my subconscious mind invented everything that happened to me during that coma. This was not my past life. It was something that never existed. Perhaps I saw Dave at school in my brain and remembered him, or maybe this was a guy from an advertisement who remained in my memories and was used by my subconscious mind during the coma. A week later, my rehabilitation began. For a long time, I learned to sit down and then get up and walk. It was incredibly difficult for me because during the coma, my body became as if it was made of wood. I didn't believe I could walk again, and I was terribly sad that for the last 5 years, I lived in my dreams and fantasies. I started walking only 6 months later. I managed to do it though my walking was slow and without sudden movements. Returning home, I realized that this place was the same as in my memories from the coma. I'm so glad that at least my house is the same as that in the coma life. I said to my mother, running my hand over the familiar sofa. I had to study at home urgently to finish school and start living in reality. And a week ago, I received a letter. I managed to get into college, which made me really happy. The second good surprise was that I met Dave in college. More precisely, I met Peter, and he really was in a commercial for chips 5 years ago. Apparently, I remembered him very much since in my fantasies I fell in love with this guy. Finally, today, my life resembles the one that was there in the coma. I have friends and a boyfriend. I preserve cordial relations with my mother, and I am very glad that I was able to return to real life. But I will remember until the end of my days what happened to me in that coma.